Now I will turn it over to Wendy Julian, our Executive Director, to explain how you can participate during today's meeting, and then she will call the roll.
Good morning. Thank you everyone for being here this morning. Those of us who are here in person at St. Anne's and those who are participating online. I'm just looking at my team over here to make sure we're good technically speaking. Or do you need a minute? We're going to pause for just a minute to make sure our online show is going on as planned so that you can all hear us. Also, we do have quorum, but we have one commissioner who will be arriving momentarily. So if you'll just give us a moment, we're going to try to address some of the technical issues and then we'll get started. Good morning. For those of you joining, if you can hear me, which maybe you can't, we're trying to resolve a couple of technical difficulties so that we can get started with the virtual streaming. I'm hearing that the sound is going through on WebEx. We're just waiting for the YouTube. So for all of you who are joining in on WebEx, we're just giving a couple minutes for the team to get the YouTube stream rolling. Thank you for your patience. Okay, for those of you who are joining on WebEx, and for those of you here in the room, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to ask my team, so that we're having trouble with the YouTube streaming. I'm going to ask my team to send out an email to if you can, to the listserv to let folks know that we will be uploading the video to YouTube later today after the meeting, but that in order to participate virtually today, Well, actually, in order to participate virtually any day, you have to do so through WebEx, but we won't be streaming the YouTube video live unless we can get that figured out. POC team, if you could send out that email to let folks know that if they want to participate virtually, they'll have to do so through WebEx. And with that, I think we can get started. So thank you for your patience. As always, we encourage real public participation in our meeting today. As Chair Mundo said, we mean that in particular today that we're leaving specific space for public comment in person and virtually. We also welcome your comments in writing. Today, if you want to send us an email at info@poc.lacounty.gov, we will share that with all of the commissioners and attach it to the public agenda. The way we're going to do things today is that we will, the same way we do at every meeting, we will present the agenda item, and then we will have the commissioners make some comments. There will go to public comment, and then go back to commissioner comment and any votes or decisions that need to be made, so that they'll be considering your comments in making their decisions. We are going to ask you to speak directly into your microphones. That goes for panelists and commissioners and also public commenters, so we can hear everybody clearly. If you want to participate, if you're here in person, it's easy. Just go stand up at the podium and form a line when we're ready to take public comment on each item. If you're joining via WebEx, please use the raise your hand function, which is the little hand button at the bottom of the screen. It's easy to do, and once you tap it, you can see that your hand is raised, and we'll call you in the order of the hands raised. If you're calling in, want to comment, dial *3 on your phone, and that raises your hand for us on the video, and we can call you by your phone number. Once we call your number, you need to press *6 to accept the unmute request, but don't worry, you don't have to memorize that. I will remind you later. All comments today will have 2 minutes unless the chair determines otherwise based on the number of commenters signed up for each item, but I expect to stick with the 2-minute mark today. If you wish to make your comment in writing, please send us an email to info@poc.lacounty.gov. Please don't send your public comment in the chat. Only the host will see it. It won't be logged as public comment, and the commissioners won't see it because it doesn't comply with our Brown Act responsibilities. So our meeting is being broadcast live today on WebEx, where we hope to get it up on YouTube, but that's not working right now. But it will be available for future viewing on YouTube. But we don't engage with users on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch the whole meeting. You can watch recaps of the meetings. Also follow our social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at LA County POC for more information about our meetings. Buenos días, bienvenidos a la reunión. Se ha iniciado ya la conferencia virtual por WebEx y estamos en vivo en persona. Si le gustaría hacer un comentario público, después de cada cuestión en la agenda vamos a aceptar comentarios públicos. Puede levantar su mano en la pantalla usando el botoncito en la parte baja de la pantalla que parece mano. Y también si está aquí en persona, le podemos proveer traducción. Nomás avísenos que quiere hacer su comentario en español. I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Dolores Canales, Commissioner Frankie Carrillo, Commissioner Sean Garcia-Lays will be joining us momentarily. Commissioner Ashay Jackson is absent. Commissioner Millie Kakani is absent. Commissioner Sam Lewis, Commissioner Don Meredith, Commissioner Diane Terry, and Chair Mundo. So with that, we have a quorum, and I will turn it over to you, Chair Mundo.
Thank you, Wendy. Let's proceed with item 2, the approval of the March 14, 2024 meeting minutes. Wendy, do we have any written public comment or live public comments for the item?
No written public comments on the minutes. I don't see anyone in the room who wants to make public comments on the minutes. Do we have any online folks with their hands raised? Nope.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the March 14 meeting minutes? Seconded by. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Canales and seconded by Commissioner Lewis. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none. Commissioners, please unmute yourselves and vote with a voice vote. Motion carries unanimously. Now we will proceed to agenda item 3. This is where we will hear an update from the POC's ad hoc committee on probation policies, practices, and data related to the charging of youth in the juvenile facilities with new crimes based on incidents that occurred within the facilities. I will be part of the panel along with Deputy Director Felicia Cotton and Bureau Chief Valerie Van Kirk. Thank you for joining us. Just by way of background, this committee was developed after we learned that there were youth being charged with new offenses at Los Padrinos and at Barry J. Once we learned about this, we met with probation, Commissioner Canales, Connie, and Terry comprised our ad hoc group. We met for an hour and were pleased with the results. In anticipation of today's meeting, Deputy Director Cotton and Bureau Chief Valerie Van Kirk provided a written report that is available to all of you. And I will now allow for both of them to verbally report and hopefully answer any questions and comments we may have after.
Good morning. For Barry J. Nardorf, SYTF, the department previously reported that there had been 3 filings through February 6th, 2024. All 3 of those filings. Since then, there has been 1 additional filing up until April 19th. I can give you the breakdown of those filings. The age range of those filings has been between, at the time of the filing was age 18 to 21. All 4 cases were filed in the adult court system. The charges ranged primarily for health and safety codes, possession of narcotics. An additional charge for 1 of those filings was resisting an officer. All 4 youth remain in the county jail system. 1 of those have been a conviction. Regarding any training that we have, our filing officers have, all of our filing deputies have gone through probation officer core training. They've previously worked in the adult field or the field in any area office throughout our county. And some of them have been special enforcement officers. We make every attempt to ensure fairness. We try to be consistent. We look at every case on a case-by-case basis. We base the decisions on the facility superintendent has to review those first. Now we are sending those to the bureau chief, which would be me at this time. And the policy is still pending. We take into consideration the egregiousness of any alleged violation, the alleged offenses, the severity of the risk or threat to the youth or the staff. And this may be consistent for both, should be consistent for both facilities, or any injuries that may have occurred during the potential violation. In the instance of all 4 of the filings for Barry J. Nardorf, SYTF, they're all drug related. They were found to be in possession of a controlled substance. Several of them were very significant amount of drugs and including pills. Several were tested and fentanyl was found within their possession. Other factors that we consider are the staffing numbers, the positioning of staff, and any policy violations. And as I previously said, case by case.
Now we'll take a look at the Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall. Some of this came up as a result of the POC stepping up to assist us with this, looking at fairness and also the lack of a policy, which again would ensure transparency and fairness. So thank you for the meeting that we had this week. I think it was a groundbreaking way to move forward with a lot of some of the major changes that we want to see in our facilities. So I hope we continue with that process. So looking at Las Padrinas Juvenile Hall, previously reported in the February 6th report that there were 36. Since that time, there's been one additional filing for 37, but 36 youth. One youth was a repeat filing. As we look at the new filings, 13 of them were assault on youth, also often referenced as packouts where there's more than one youth involved in a fight on one youth. The other assaults were 24 where there were assaults on staff. I'll run through where we are with some of those filings and where some of the youth are now. One petition not filed, 5 dismissed, 7 at the pretrial conference, 3 pending disposition. Of those youth, 3 of them, 2 at the time were pending competency, and 1 we learned of competency issues during this process. We have 1 that's home on probation, 2 that have been suitably placed, 4 that are in the camp community placement setting, 1 that's in the secure SYTF at Berry J. Of those, also current location 17 remain at Las Padrinas Juvenile Hall. I gave you a breakdown of the other 2 suitable placement, and I think we have 3 currently housed at Juvenile Hall, and then 1, as I mentioned, at the secure youth treatment facility at Berry J. The training for the officer, we had 1 officer that was specifically trained for this, previously a court officer, had a lot of training, had a lot of informal training with our district attorney's office in Compton. Currently now, as we work on the policy, which we anticipate having on or before sometime in June this year, we will have all of the cases reviewed through the superintendent, a bureau chief, and a bureau chief and above. I have been reviewing as well, so it could go to bureau chief and it could result in going higher. Again, it's a case by case. We look at, as Valerie has indicated, it's the same process for Las Padrinas as it is for Berry J, where we look at staffing, policy violations, mental health, severity, seriousness, injury, and those are the drivers as far as when we make those decisions. Again, the policy again will make it more transparent, where everybody will have opportunity to know what we're looking at. I know there's been a question as to, I know the committee when we met said, wow, only 1 filing since that time. What do you think was some of the reasons for the only 1 filing? And one thing that I didn't have an opportunity to do a deep dive, but one thing certainly deterrence. I'm also deployed there at the site. I talk to kids regularly, and many of them are interested in some of the things that they can achieve from the behavior management program, not really interested in what they've known has happened in the past to some of their buddies that have gotten into some of these pack-out situations. And fewer pack-outs of late. Seen a possible uptick in incidents, but not in the pack-outs. So the more violent incidents that we were seeing first moved in July all the way up to the February date. So we'll do a deeper dive. That was a quick cursory view of the data that was available post the meeting that we had when the committee kind of generally asked that question.
Thank
That'll
you.
be our
Thank you.
presentation.
As an ad hoc committee, we plan on meeting once more, hopefully timely to the release of the directive and the policies to continue our discussion. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Commissioner Meredith?
My first question is there a written policy that everybody knows to procedure we're going to do on this now?
There is not a policy, there is not. That everybody knows what should happen at Los Padrinos and at Berry J. Yeah.
Okay, everybody knows, but there's no written documentation, memorandum or anything? So
No.
that, okay, there probably should be. But I do like the fact that how it's being done, and I do like the results so far. The only other question I really have is, there was a comment made that 3 or 4 of these adult youth had significant amounts of drugs in the facility. Did we do a follow-up on where they got those drugs? And if so, who's doing that follow-up?
I would have to look into that further, but we are doing our very best to follow up on every case where drugs are.
Okay, because,
I can't speak to the specifics of these 4 cases, but we are looking at instances where we are finding drugs.
okay, so that's one of the concerns I've had as an ongoing thing on contraband, is that there may not have been significant follow-up on where the source of it is. And if so, turning it over to the local agency, or we have somebody else in-house doing it. That's all.
Commissioner Lewis?
A follow-up and dovetails into that question. So in these instances, and this is a question of the policy that will eventually be written. There have been instances where staff have been found or suspected of bringing drugs in and they're walked off, and no charges are brought. My question is, when we talk about transparency and fairness, if I'm a peace officer and I bring drugs into a facility and give it to a youth, and now the youth is charged, should not that peace officer also be charged for providing those drugs? That's one. 2, though not on this agenda, the greatest mechanism that we could use to stop the introduction of narcotics into, or any contraband into the facility, still is not up and running. And from what I understand, it's not even on, that was not even presented in the budget for probation, which was the scanners at the entrance for everyone to go through. Neither facility has them, and as I understand, they were not even requested in the budget. Are they going to be requested in the budget? Are we going to ever get those scanners that were literally, if you think about it, everybody has been on a plane, you can't even have a dime in your coin pocket to walk through a scanner. Imagine having those at the front entrance in addition to dogs. That would probably take it down. Even you wouldn't even have that one charge, because no one, it would significantly decrease the introduction of any contraband into the facilities if everyone had to walk through those scanners.
I concur, and I will follow up and find out where we are with ordering those. The last discussion I was involved in, I have not been privy to all, is that we were ordering.
And,
But you may have more up-to-date information than I have. I was under the impression that we were in the process of ordering those for facilities.
and Commissioner Lewis, this is not the first time you brought this subject up, and I think it may call for thinking about an agenda item or an ad hoc, so to keep it. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Terry?
Hi, we had a really good ad hoc meeting, so thank you for the information you provided. I think we realized afterwards that we weren't clear about the role of the first team, and we left the meeting with different takeaways about what their role is in the process. Could you just clarify for us what role they play at what point, and then what training they also receive?
So our first team is a team that reviews our use of force packets, and they actually are the independent reviewer once a use of force packet has been completed and submitted. They also have the ability to refer to IA if they notice anything that might have been missed in the actual facility review. So they are an independent group of assistant directors. There's an assistant director, and I do owe you an org chart. There's a bureau chief, a director. There are 2 directors and about, I think, 6 assistant directors that do that review.
But in particular to this process, they actually do not play a role.
They do not play a role in this process at all.
Any other commissioner with a question or comment?
Just one more follow-up, thinking about the substance abuse. Is one of the factors, so if someone is found in possession, is one of the things that a policy would consider in reviewing the background is if that youth has been identified as having a substance abuse history or challenge, because I would imagine, I mean, you know, we all know relapse is a part of the recovery process often. So how does that play into the determination?
The decision is also made based on the amount, substance and the seriousness of it. But we're going to look at all of those things when we're devising policy. Every situation that we're looking at the history as well.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Rio?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Cotton, I'm some comments and questions here, but thinking LP's been open for 9 months now, and I feel like from the very beginning, even prior to it being open, there was this really strong narrative of this violence that was brewing or had been there. And I think that the charges are maybe an example that not only wasn't just talk, but now it's been exposed and there's paperwork to prove it. You know, one of my concerns is the bias towards specific youth who staff might think are trouble or had causing trouble. And I'm having a flashback of a young boy who was in Sylmar, the compound, who was considered what people say he was a troublemaker. He was always causing trouble, and they wanted to get him to the county jail. They wanted to get him out. And I always felt that there was always this setup. There was either they were insinuating him to get in trouble, or he was just taking it upon himself just to create drama. Has there been situations, Ms. Scott, has there been situations in Los Padrinos where some things could have been avoided when it comes to these fights that we're talking about, or packouts? Since we're talking about staff who are overseeing the youth in your investigation, or just as your as a career probation officer, is there situations where these things could have been avoided? The fights, or packouts versus the drugs.
Privy to every single one. I do know that there are some, in particular, there's been a couple that I've looked into personally. Just looking into the mental. If there was something that we could get, just having a MDT, and really not an MDT, but a multidisciplinary conversation with our on-site experts that might have been able to give us some intel. So I really couldn't speak to avoidance, more so that I could speak to just making sure that we're all on one page and that we are rolling those experts to the front to give us some guidance when we are seeing some escalation in behavior that's kind of unexplainable. One kid with very limited impulse control was of concern to me when I looked at the video. So again, we pulled mental health in and just looked at everything we could look at to see, is he situated correctly? Is there something else that can be done, up to and including, is there some kind of court intervention that we might need to seek to, not necessarily a filing, but a court intervention that might say another setting, another mental health evaluation, or something that may even 730 evaluation that may tell us more than what we already know. So those are things, again, that we continue to do, especially when we see some behavior that could be explained differently or even seen differently, responded to differently.
So thinking of behavior and videos, so we've all been privy to the video that's been exposed in LA Times, and I'm sure we've all watched it. When I talk about prevention, I think the video is pretty clear that there could have been some preventative measures that could have happened in that moment, that specific moment. My concern is that there are things that are allowed to happen that then create a domino effect that impact people's lives and eventually can even lead to extra charges. But using that video as an example about intervening and preventing these things from happening in the first place, or at least catching it early, doesn't create a bigger problem. Can you speak about maybe, if you don't want to speak about that incident, but about the point that I'm trying to make here about certain things can be prevented that would then not trigger a potential charge?
So we're always looking at ways to get better. I don't want to a perfect system, work in progress, but I'd like to be able to say being deployed there along with 5 other bureau chiefs and currently now 25 managers, taking a look at positioning, training. I know Ms. Epps, Chief Deputy Epps has a whole training venue that she's looking at to bring on board. So certainly those are things that we are looking at regularly and daily. Probably morning, noon, and night, you have one of us looking at positioning and just looking at staffing and to make sure that we have all those things appropriate in it. That is happening regularly. It's a work in progress.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner? I have one question, and this is why I love data, because it starts a good discussion. And as I look at the data you provided, the most striking information that it shares is that the majority of these assaults occurred by youth who were 16 or 17, which I find odd because usually that's the age where kids are starting to kind of age out of their adolescence. And so based on that comment, I wonder what percentage of the population of Los Padrinos do those two age groups represent? And given that this is so visible here, has there been any kind of discussion within the department about just kind of looking at this age group and see what we can do differently?
So I'd have to look into that, but I do know that age group probably represents the larger number when I think about the units, where those young people would normally be in general population. And yes, we're looking at a myriad of things, including programming. There was a recent survey from them to find out what is working and what is not, what additional programming they would like to see there. There are some vocational programs that they're asking that we're looking into as well. We have ongoing conversations with LACO around school and things that we can do to bring over into the afternoon, into the evening, as well as the weekend hours for this age group.
And given that population and the number, if a staff is assaulted, are they returned to that same unit or given the opportunity to another unit if they like?
That
Yeah.
I wouldn't have that information.
Wendy, do we have any written or live public comment on this item?
I don't believe we have any prior received written comment on this item. If you'd like to, you can submit it via email at info@poc.lacounty.gov. If you'd like to make public comment on this issue and you're in the room, please follow Mr. Bell, stand at the podium. If you're online and you'd like to make public comment, please use the raise your hand function, which is the little hand button at the bottom. If you're calling in, please dial *3 on your phone and that will raise your hand. I have heard that the YouTube stream is up and running. Thank you to my staff who are very resilient in these times. You cannot make public comment on YouTube. If you want to, you got to log on to WebEx and or send us an email. So we will begin, and I'm going to set the timer for you, Mr. Bell, and then I will let you know when it's over. You can begin.
So yeah, we're preventing things every day, just to let you know. And Mr. Lewis brought up charges on officers, but I would also ask that you include teachers, mental health, you include parents, and also credible metrics. All four of them has also been brought up with things that brought inside. I get to work camps with the kids, so I get to hear about what's happening in the hall when they come to camp. So all four of them names that we also brought in along with the officers could be included in that as bringing in charges as well, not just the officers. Thank you.
Tanya Ibanez with AIM. My concern is the lack of procedures. There should be written procedures at this point, given the amount of charges that have been placed against these youth. And also what I'm finding a little disturbing here is that we don't really know what is the cause of these packouts. And I'm concerned that perhaps that's not being investigated. And I'm hopeful that when you are doing an investigation of someone who's in the system, whether it be for fentanyl or assaults on youth or staff, that there is a thorough investigation done by an outside probation officer and not someone within the facility. It's important that you find out about all of the witnesses, what motivated the pack out. Was this a situation where it's a gladiator fight that has been promoted or advocated by a probation officer within the system? So I'm hoping that you have an independent investigator that comes in and not only interviews the staff involved that witnessed the pack out, but also everyone that was involved, whether the victims, the perpetrators, everyone needs to be interviewed, and this needs to be thoroughly investigated, because the bottom line is you need to find out, why is this happening? Why are youth assaulting each other? Why are they assaulting staff? This is not only for the due process of the youth being charged, but it's also to protect your own staff. So I think it's critical for you to have written procedures that detail all of this. I'm not quite sure why you need to know staffing numbers and making a decision whether to charge a youth. But if I was a public defender and my client came to me and was being charged, the first thing I would do is I would criticize the fact that you don't have any written procedures. And I would argue that all of this is biased and that my clients are being tortured and tormented in this facility, and that it's gotten to the point where it's critical.
Yeah, I don't see any more speakers in the room. We do have a number of speakers online. We're going to start with Lupe Ross. Lupe, if you can unmute yourself, please. Lupe, oh, this turned off. Mic is still turned on. I'm not sure whether you can still hear me on WebEx. Lupe, if you can unmute yourself, you show it's unmuted on our end. Let's go to call in. Go to the, oh, there, we're going to go to the 10. Your number starts with 213. You need to dial *6 on your phone to unmute. And Ms. Ross will come back to you after the call-in users. Thank you for your patience. Ms. Ross, I think we have you connected on the phone. We're talking about Lupe. Yes? Can you try to?
Hello. 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 Should I just start speaking? Can you hear me? I don't hear anything. I can hear somebody trying.
Shall we try call-in user number 4? Or do you want to go to call-in user number 10, Jennifer? We're going to number 10. Call-in user number 10. Your number starts with 213. We're going to send you the unmute request and you need to dial *6. You're unmuted, call-in user number 10. You just need to dial *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, we're going to need to go forward. Let's go to Audrina. See if we can make this.
Can you hear me? I'm not getting a connection on my end, but I'm gonna try to speak. I can't hear anything on this side. My comments are towards when it comes to policy. I think this is important. It's important when we report probation officers, or if somebody is doing something they're not supposed to do towards our youth. They ask us to go through ombudsman. So now I went through this process, and I feel like this is something that should be changed within policy as well. They keep everything a secret. So if I have a complaint and I need to go make a complaint towards an officer or something that's occurring within the juvenile halls, they'll tell me, we'll take your complaint, but you're not going to know the result of it. So now comparing this, because I took the time to go walk through Orange County juvenile halls, and man, a lot of parents would get really upset if they could compare the differences, and it's an insult to certain juvenile halls that really got their everything together in a sense. And I went over there and I filed a complaint. They told me the result of my complaint. They told me they took care of it right away. They're not rude, they're not disrespectful to you at all. They take everything very seriously, while over here in LA County it's just a complete mess, you know? So I just feel like when it comes to policy, that should change, for us to, it's like everything's a huge secret. If a probation officer is doing something wrong, why does it have to be this big secret that nobody could know about? I feel like with positions like that, it's important to bring to a community's notice, and something that should change within policy with the ombudsman's office is we should and deserve to know the result of our complaints instead of making it a big secret as if they're just pushing it to the side and not doing anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrina, and we could hear you loud and clear
Okay.
on the WebEx as well. So let's go back to call-in user. Let's go back to call-in user number 10. Call-in user number 10, your number starts with 213. We're going to send you the unmute request and you need to dial *6. Do we have call-in user number 10 unmuted? Your line is open. Okay, let's go on to call-in user. Your number starts with 310. We've sent you the unmute request. Your mic is on. You need to dial *6 and you can begin.
Hello? This is Lupe Ross.
Calling
in.
Can
Can
you
you hear me?
With Lupe.
I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I'll just make my statement.
My
Volume is all the way down.
So, The lady that spoke earlier about getting all the reports and everything over to the youth attorneys, I totally agree with everything she is saying. Our youths have attorneys, and
they should be notified and they should be able to share information with them. Increase your system. Oh, this is terrible today. Now it tells me to put my voice up, my volume up. Okay, so I'm hoping you can hear me. I agree with the lady that said that everything should be given the attorney. The attorney should have all the information that's going to go to the attorney. And nothing should be kept from them. There has to be a reason why this is going on. And they have to have them. They have the right. And they should contact us before just going to the probation. I mean, the district attorney to file. Okay, I'm going to stop because we all have it. Thank you.
Who's the next name? I don't think we are going to be able to do the call-in users. It doesn't seem to be working. I'm sorry, I can't hear that. You, we're unmuting you, Samuel Leonard.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
You can begin. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I just heard a mention of an org chart being provided to the Probation Oversight Commission. I'm with the Public Defender's Office. I was just hoping that we could also acquire of the org chart, either from probation and or from the Probation Oversight Committee. Thank you. I can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear
David
me.
Carroll.
Hello? Hello?
Everyone, I'm struggling just like everyone else to hear both the panel and the caller. So hopefully you can hear me. My response was directly to the comment regarding credible messengers being accused of bringing things into the facilities. The Department of Youth Development, which I lead, is responsible for that program, and I have not heard a single accusation. So I would appreciate, first of all, if those accusations are founded, that my office, my department be notified. But if those accusations are not founded, that we don't just spread rumors for the sake of getting attention in these types of settings. That is the remainder of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Do we have any further comments? Helen Eigenberg. Helen, we're going to unmute you.
My name is Helen Eigenberg, and I appreciate being able to ask something and being here today. I'm just calling in because I just wanted to reiterate that there should be written procedures and an independent investigation team, since some of these packouts might be instigated by the staff. Thank you.
I'm going to ask Deputy Director Cotton to respond to these questions about the written policy, please.
As we stated earlier, as a part of the lack of policy, there is a policy that is under development that will be published somewhere between now and. So we do anticipate that coming forth. The interim, we do have reviews and approvals at the higher level, bureau chief and above, for any.
Callers? Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any comments or further questions? Commissioner Lewis?
I'd like to echo Mr. Carroll stated. First and foremost, just at our last POC commission, Chief Deputy Epps sat right there, specifically did not name credible messengers and ever accused. I highlighted that. You can go to they're online. You can see where that was said. 2, parents have been prosecuted for bringing in drugs, and we're all aware of that. What I'm saying is, in the last few months, there was a teacher that was walked off.
one individual over here because that's just the way that it is until we start, dealing with that type of learned behavior. And as for the accountability that we want on everyone, I think that it's important to show too the youth, just as we want accountability for everyone involved in any kind of misconduct. The youth also need to see too that consequences will happen down the line should you continue on in this path, but yet without an enforcement of just, more jail, more cells, more handcuffs, more, but dealing more with the issue. And that's just my take. And thank you.
I just wanted to add that in talking with county council, it is possible to put on the agenda for our next meeting, which is actually in 2 weeks, to create those ad hoc committees if you wish to do so.
I also would like to address Adrina, one of the callers. I do have to agree with her about the differences in the different counties and the facilities. I know in Orange County, they are actually allowing credible messengers to teach the end of hostilities, which has various areas and racial groups actually coming together and not fighting against each other, but rather how to resolve issues in a different way other than using violence and gaining unity, and then even getting out and getting enrolled in UC Irvine, and just the work that is being done with the follow-up to these youth and their lives and the trajectory of their life is absolutely incredible. But this is being allowed, like stopping the violence and coming together. Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Regarding the discussion of criminal filings, I think it's important to keep in mind that probation department has an administrative action that is often taken against staff who are found to have been bringing in contraband, which is different than a criminal filing. I think, I don't have the stats, but my office has been involved in monitoring those administrative actions when officers are found to be suspected and then later substantiated to have been bringing in contraband, and what the consequence is of that, the discipline from that. It's my understanding also that the probation department can make a presentation to the DA's office relating to staff bringing in contraband, and then it's the DA's office that decides whether or not criminal charges are filed. So I don't have the data as to how often that's done, but I can say it is done. I was recently involved in monitoring a disciplinary action where a staff member was discharged for allegedly bringing in contraband. But the next step, as far as Commissioner Lewis is concerned, is if the actual officer is charged, that's going to depend on the probation department presenting those facts to the DA's office. That, I think, is a key area to look at. How often are those facts brought for a criminal filing, as opposed to the probation department itself bringing the charges? As you know, that's not the case. So, but I can tell the commission that administrative actions do take place regarding staff who are alleged to have been bringing in contraband. Sure.
So we'll close agenda item 3 and move on to agenda item 4. I'm going to read the agenda out, but we'll have to update my fellow commissioners on things that have transpired since the agenda was shared with probation and published. So agenda item 4 is to discuss and take appropriate action, which may include a motion directing staff to work with the OIG to issue a subpoena on behalf of the POC requesting information regarding the POC's prior request for redacted CC09 reports to support the POC's examination and recommendation on reforms to the intake process. Since we published our agenda and since we shared the agenda with probation, County Council has ruled that we do not have a legal right to the information, even if it's redacted. County Council for Probation is not here today, so there is no one to question about that. And hopefully, at a later meeting, we will be able to get them here and get clarification. For the purpose of clarity, the CCO9 is actually a report generated from an automated system. And all it really shares is the decisions that were made in court on certain days. And the one that the POC was interested in was following the detention decisions and attempting to get a correlation with the detention recommendations. The purpose for this was to examine the system, not probation. How often did probation recommend release and the court disagree? How often did probation recommend detention and the court released? What were the points? We, in September, were provided redacted reports, intake reports for 1 week during September to examine. And the information provided in those also was redacted. We were able to get an idea of what type of offenses are being booked by law enforcement agencies. We were able to get an idea of what recommendations were. And the CCO9 was just requested to help us complete the study, the examination, and to start a discussion with all the players in the system, not just probation. So given that we may not have the authority to subpoena or work with the OIG, we have an option to motion and work with probation to create a concurrence report where they take the information and share it with us. And the motion would read, unless it's changed by our commission and our discussion, instruct probation to create a concurrence report and provide it to the POC by May 20, 2024 for the detention recommendation and detention decisions for the cases reviewed from September 2023. The report should provide a list of probation recommendations and court decisions and the calculation of the rate of occurrence. Before we start the discussion, I would like to just add one piece. I spoke with Deputy Director Alicia Cotton about this subject, and she has demonstrated an interest to work with us. And hopefully today, if we do get a motion and through our comments and questions, it can be a little more tight and zeroed into. So with that, I will ask if the commissioners have any questions or comments at this time. Sorry. So I motion that we take option 2 and instruct probation to create a concurrence report as previously stated. And I'm asking for a second. Seconded by Commissioner Lewis. Okay, Commissioner Legs.
So I don't know these CCO9 reports in detail. I don't know exactly what they look like, but if it requires any sort of discretion or trying to determine what are the limits or what goes in and what goes out, I would think that we'd be better off asking the OIG to present the report rather than the probation department.
To complete the work of the concurrence or just?
So for example, county council says we can't look at these redacted CCO9s. That doesn't mean that Mr. Bates can't look at those redacted or unredacted CCO9s and get us the information we want. And I would find any information presented to us by the OIG more reliable than any information presented to us by the probation department. So I'm considering like whether or not maybe the motion would be better amended to replace instruct probation to instruct OIG. But I would want to hear from Mr. Bates before actually trying to amend the motion.
Well, before we hear more comments from other commissioners, we'll give you a chance to respond.
Commissioner, I understand your concern based on some recent history. I think it's important to have the probation department do what they are mandated to do and what they are requested to do by this commission. I think a safeguard could be placed in there that if once you receive the report, you do not believe for some reason that it's accurate or something leads you to believe that it's not providing the entire picture, I think our office could definitely review that report to confirm its accuracy, for lack of a better term. But I think it's important that the probation department do a report that concerns its youth. And the commission is entitled to request that to be done. And the flip side is give them an opportunity to show that it can be done correctly. But if there's a concern by this commission that it was not, we are here in place to assist you to make sure that the information is accurate.
I'm trying to picture the ordinance creating this commission in my head, and do we have the right to demand that they do research and create documents? I spend most of my day job, a lot of my day job, doing Public Records Act requests, and I know that this would not be something that the public would be allowed to ask for under public records laws because it's a document that doesn't already exist. Is there anybody who knows whether or not we have the ability?
Did you say the word demand?
What's that?
Was it, do we have the,
If we ask for this, do they have to give it to us under the statute, or can they, or does the statute not extend to producing reports that don't already exist?
I'm happy to share my opinion about that if you would like to hear it. Commissioner Garcia.
Yes, I would love to hear your
Okay,
opinion.
so the ordinance says that the commission has the right to compel testimony and to request information from the department. It doesn't, I would say it doesn't specifically say conduct research or develop new things, but it is not a mirror of the California Public Records Act request. So certainly the commission can ask for things that go beyond what a California Public Records Act request would require, or else what would be the point of allowing by ordinance? If not, we could just ask for things under the Public Records Act, I guess is what I'm saying. I think the distinction here is what Commissioner Mundo mentioned in his comments, which has been the case over the 3 years of the commission in some situations and not in others, is that the department has willingly gone along with the request to create something that they wouldn't otherwise have to create if it was just a general Public Records Act request. They've done that in a number of situations, including this charges report, for example, that we just received that provided a lot of very detailed information that hadn't been collected in that format prior. So I think it's actually Deputy Director Cotton's conversation with Commissioner Mundo that makes me think that there is an opportunity for a collaborative approach here that's not necessarily something that is specifically allowable under the things that the commission can demand under the ordinance, if that answers your question in some way.
It does. And so I think I'm inclined then to follow Mr. Bates' suggestion and leave the motion the way it is, which I will support. And then if there's a problem, we'll look otherwise. I feel like we have not really tested the limits of our authority, nor have we really figured out as a matter of policy what to do when we're faced with intransigence from the department. And my comments are really towards trying to come up with a more permanent way of doing this work rather than relying on probation to when they want to be cooperative. But as long as they're being cooperative, that is probably the best way to move forward. So thank you.
And just to share, I think that the ad hoc model is really going to transform the way we do business. It's intimate, and you have an hour, and it's specific to an item, and it doesn't get derailed. So I think that we'll see the results that we want with this motion. Commissioner Meredith?
I may not get the answer here, but I'm curious from county council, since we have opposing council, we have our county council and the department has their county council. There isn't here. If you have an opinion on this, trying to get redacted information, or have you discussed it with your peer?
Hi, good morning. I tend to agree with chairs and Wendy's assessments on that. And, I pulled up the ordinance to look at it myself. If you guys want to field any more specific legal questions to me offline, we'll provide you a written analysis. But I do agree with the general sentiment that the probation department's not taking every request the POC makes as a PRA request. And the documents and reports that they have provided kind of show that. So yeah, happy to field any other questions about your ordinance.
Mr. Bates, if this process goes sideways, is there any chance at a later meeting or a later time, the OIG's office may weigh in on the county council's ruling? Not today, but
As far as the confidentiality aspect?
yes.
827, 813, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Terry?
I had a clarifying question. Would the report just be the straight up recommendations? Is there any other information we would want? Like, I'd be curious to know racial breakdowns, age breakdowns, and how that maybe, what those numbers look like in comparison to the recommendations?
We have that data. We just don't have the final data, which is what happened, when were they released, and how they were released. Any other questions, commissioners? Having no questions or comments, actually before, Deputy Director Cotton, would you like to make any comment regarding this issue?
No, we'll be willing to work together to provide information for the system for both.
Right, thank you. Do we have any public comment live or virtual?
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that this goes smoother than it did last time. Do we have any public comment in the audience who would like to make comments about this? I don't see any, and I don't think we have any hands raised online. Just giving it a second because sometimes there's a little delay in the broadcast. Okay, seeing none.
Okay, so if we're done with commissioner comments or questions, Wendy, can you facilitate a vote for us with this motion?
Thank you. Please vote yes, no, or abstain on the motion. And to be clear, the motion is attached to the agenda, and the motion is for option 2, not for option 1. So I will call your name and please vote with a voice vote. Commissioner Canales, Commissioner Carrillo, Commissioner Garcia-Lays, Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith, Commissioner Terry, and Commissioner Mundo. So the motion passes unanimously with Commissioners Kakani and Jackson being absent.
Okay, thank you. Moving along, we are now at item 5 of the agenda. The Los Angeles County Probation Department will report on the training that is being provided to staff who are deployed from the field into the juvenile institutions. Here to report again, our Deputy Director Felicia Cotton and Bureau Chief Valerie Van Kirk.
So our deployed staff, as you know, we have staff deployed into our institutions from both the juvenile side of the house as well as the adult side of the house. Received a 40-hour menu of training and an additional 4 if you were deployed to Barry J, because they have a different behavior management model. So there was an additional 4 hours added. Provided a spreadsheet of the courses that were provided. Physical intervention training. There was an 8-hour course to be completed by April 16th and part 2. The other 8 hours are due by June 30th. Use of force, the policy, site-specific training, OC spray, room confinement, suicide prevention, child abuse, Prison Rape Elimination Act, PREA, again, and then the DSS, which is our developmental stage system at Barry J. Round 1, 60-day deployments, there were 250 officers trained to date. 152 have been deployed to Las Cruces Juvenile Hall. 56 have been deployed to Barry J SYTF. Again, we have the remaining 8-hour, what we're calling PIT training, which is physical intervention training. That will be with a due date of June 30th to be completed. Additionally, we have 25 managers that have also been placed in the facility on deployment, and 6 bureau chiefs that are assisting us with, again, compliance, sustainability, and just improving the overall work location.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner Terry?
I had 2 questions. For the developmental stage system, who provides that training?
Training was originally approved by the Department of Justice, training curriculum. We sent several staff through training for trainers course, and then those staff went on to train the rest of the staff at Barry J. Nardo Juvenile and the deployed.
Okay, and is that the only, because I was curious to know for current staff, what involvement or role they play with training, or sounds like there are informal best practices maybe that every unit is using. So do they have opportunities to share that information with some of the deployed staff coming in? Or is there any way we're drawing on wisdom, best practices from current staff?
I would have to say yes, because of the staff that are assigned to Barry J. Nardo Juvenile Hall have been there a longer period of time, and they're mentoring and assisting the staff that have come in. They've all taken the same training. However, in addition, several months prior to this 8-hour curriculum being approved, there was a 4-hour overview training provided to the Barry J regular assigned staff in addition to this 8 hours. So they got a little bit more training to assist with when the deployed staff came in.
But to your question, we do have plethora of very well-trained staff that have stepped up to assist. There's a lot of sharing on both sides. The field staff are bringing some expertise, and certainly the staff that are on site have been willing to share and to work together. The units are usually mixed with both field and DSB and Barry J staff, and we have seen a nice complement when those pieces are put together. Both are sharing their expertise, but there is a lot of on-site expertise facility shared.
Can I ask Ms. Cotton or Ms. Van Kirk? I think maybe 2 years ago, Commissioner Canales and Meredith might remember this. There was a presentation about the train the trainer model. I don't mean to put you on the spot because I know that wasn't on the agenda, but I do think it does respond in some ways to Commissioner Terry's question. who was not on the commission at that time. Could you just explain briefly the train the trainer model and where that comes from?
Train the Trainer has been a model for training for a very long time. It is a different curriculum that teaches staff and subject matter experts how to actually facilitate and execute the training. We have Director Catherine Bay, who was involved with helping develop the program, the DSS model with the subject matter expert from the DOJ. And she initially taught the Train the Trainer because she was involved with the development of the entire development of stage system through the guidance of the Department of Justice. So she conducted numerous Train the Trainer courses. It is very similar to the LA model, the stage system. So it is something that she's been involved with for many, many years.
Commissioners? Seeing no further questions or comments, Wendy, do we have any public comment, live or virtual?
I believe we have no previously received written public comment on this topic. If you'd like to, please email us at info@poc.lacounty.gov. I see we have at least one public commenter in the room. Please feel free to come up to the podium if you'd like to give public comment live. If you'd like to give public comment online, use the raise your hand function or push the little raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you're on your phone, dial *3 and that will put you in the queue. And we will begin with Mr. Bell.
Hello again. Just got a few questions. As far as the physical aspect of the training, is it the same requirement as when you first came into the academy? And how many of the officers that's going through that physical part are actually passing it? I was at the training center doing the graduation, and this lady, I won't say her age, but her number started with a 1. She was having trouble with the physical aspect. So with the more mature officers that are in the training right now, are they just going through the same type of training that we did when we were in our 20s and 30s and are expected to pass, or are they shown other ways to handle it where they won't hurt themselves or anything?
Oh, yes, please.
So the physical intervention training is a training that is for peace officers to be able to meet the requirements of being a peace officer. So it is delivered and expected that anyone that would come in contact or need to provide assistance to another deputy, to a youth in a facility, that they would be able to respond. So the pit is set up not based on age, but based on the peace officer requirements. So it's not, again, based on when you came into the department, it's based on your ability to physically intervene and ensure a safe and secure environment in the facility.
I'd say it conforms to our use of force policy.
It conforms to our use of force policy.
Okay, we're going to go to the online commenters. First, we have Lupe Ross. Lupe, we're going to unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Thank goodness, yes.
Oh, thank God. Okay, thank you. I would like to know if all these staff people are being deployed, what about us, the families? Who's servicing us? What is the process during this period of deployment? What is the process that probation is using to service the families? I personally have called the probation PO locator, their line, and they've called me back saying they've made 4 and 5 phone calls to different probation officers that were listed as being the probation officer, and they all said no, they weren't. So what are we, the family, supposed to do, and how many officers do we have, and at what offices, and what is our procedure to try to get assistance when we need it immediately? Thank you.
action agenda, but not.
All of our probation offices have remained open. We have had to reshuffle and realign caseloads. So my apologies if your call may have gotten caught in the cross of changing over. We have condensed and realigned staff to be able to assist our adult bureaus. Our juvenile caseloads are significantly lower, and much of them are covered by current DPO and the DPO of record that has been on a 60-day rotation. That work has been disseminated to other probation officers within the office or within the region. Every day there is an OD, an officer of the day, and supervisors and a manager that the public will have access to. So if any issues arise that probation office is open, there should be a leadership team there and an officer of the day that should be able to assist with any needs that the families have.
Thank you for that question, Ms. Ross, and the answer, Ms. Cotton. And Ms. Ross would be happy to know that while we haven't published the agenda yet, it is leadership's intent to have the adult services, field services issue on the agenda at the May 9th meeting. So we hope you'll be here to listen to that presentation. Adrina, we're going to unmute you next.
I've said this before, and I still think the probation staff needs a lot more training. 40 hours isn't enough, in my opinion. And I believe they need training on more important things than more than their physical, like de-escalation, counseling, organization, to use force as a last resort, not their first. It's more than just being physical. It's to learn how to do your job without inflicting violence. They also have poor communication skills. A perfect example is probation officer Teresa Longoria, I believe her name was. She publicly disrespected the death of Brian Diaz in front of his mother. Then she proceeds to say LA probation is the best at what they do. While in meetings prior to that, she was screaming at the BSCC members for help and that the problems with management. So it's just things like that gives you a idea of the type of characters we're dealing with here. And aside from their physical training, you need to include other training. You know, they say we shouldn't use violence to, I was just reading a book. I forgot the author, but and it's something that stuck out to me. It said that a true leader uses violence as a last resort, not the first. You know, so I feel like you guys need more training in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Helen Eigenberg. Helen, we're going to unmute you.
I never hear anyone talk about emotional development and meeting these kids where they are emotionally. They are youth. And I just really am questioning if there's any in the training. 40 hours does not sound like a lot. And if this is being addressed, I teach sex ed in the LAUSD. I deal with teenagers every single day. And there's emotionally and developmentally, they're in a very different space than adults. So there is that. And 40 doesn't seem like a lot. And then my other question kind of aligns with Ms. Ross, and it may be a little off and maybe more aligned with the May 9th meeting. But my question is, when, if it hasn't happened already, are those field officers out of Los Padrinos and back into their jobs? And my other question with that is, how does that impact those who do not currently have their field POs? I'm really concerned about those who are out and don't have their field POs now because they've been pulled into Los Padrinos. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is a call-in user number 20. Your number starts with 626. Call-in user number 20, please dial star. I think we're having trouble with the call-in system today. I apologize for that. Please feel free to send your written comments to info@poc.lacounty.gov. We'll go to Peggy Bailey, and then we'll come back to the call-in user and give it one more shot. Peggy, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Peggy Bailey. I'm a licensed clinical social worker with decades of experience with youth and teens, both in and out of the juvenile justice space. I was just wondering, just a direct question. Has the department considered at all, like given any consideration to non-physical intervention training, I guess to non-PIT training, both on-site and off-site?
Yes, there is what we did was responded to the question of the additional training that the field staff would receive above their normal training that they actually receive for the duties that they do. De-escalation is a big piece. Enhanced supervision. It covers de-escalation. I'm sorry, I didn't see it on this document. I don't know how we missed it, but enhanced supervision also provides the various supervision strategies for youth, from a one-on-one supervision, kids that need that type of supervision, the group supervision, de-escalation, and the ability to be able to engage these young people is the number one tool. I think that was mentioned earlier that we have as officers. And so that is used on a regular basis. And again, that's ongoing training. And then to Commissioner Terry's question that she asked earlier, a lot of the sharing and on-site this coaching and mentoring that they do amongst each other centers around our ability to be able to de-escalate and engage youth in a way that is non-physical. So that's the number one go-to that we have, again. And going physical with the youth or becoming physical with the youth is the last resort.
Thank you. We're going to try one more time with call-in user number 20. You need to dial *6 on your phone to unmute yourself.
Good morning. You hear me now, correct? Good morning. Hi there. Check one.
You can proceed, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, well, I have a child development certification, and regarding that, I was a caregiver and hold elderly caregiver. So as I've seen development for the human development, especially for the juveniles that I'm seeing right now as my child's in there, I believe emotional, which I've been saying on my written comments and been commenting since December of 2023, we're supposed to impact and overboard on this pact. And also believe that there's a lot of problems with the families too. So when the kids, they have to have programs for the parents as well, I should believe. And also regarding that, there's a lot of probation officers that do need training, but also as a nurse, we do our nursing. We take classes, 2-hour class per month to renew our brain, because as we grow older, we prune ourselves. But if they do get training one time for jobs and then they go in and they don't retrain as monthly, our brains do prune. We prune less like human beings. So I think we should assemble an organization on developing this programs for everyone in the system, not just the probation officers, just everyone, just to have a better platform to better the public. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's the end of public comment. Thank you to everyone who called in. And if you were calling in on the phone and we weren't able to get your comments, as Chair Mundo said, we'll have an extended period of time for public comment and general public comment, and we'd welcome you to call back, and hopefully we can listen to what you have to say.
Wendy, commissioners, any comments or further questions? Okay, seeing none, that ends item number 5, and we are scheduled for a break, which is timely since it's 10:50. Panelists, You are not scheduled to stay, but are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. It should be quicker than the first half. That said, we will return at 11 o'clock.
So she looks CPR.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are returning and we're going to start with item number 6. We will hear a report from Executive Director Wendy Julian on the 2024 inspections and the POC's quarterly report. Wendy, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate having this item put on the agenda so I can update all of the commissioners together, as well as the department and the members of the public in particular, about what the Probation Oversight Commission staff are doing in the background, and how we're helping the commission continue momentum on some of the projects that you all have asked us to do, that the PRIT reform priorities ask us to do, that Youth Justice Reimagined and the board initiatives ask us to do. And so I will start by saying that I think it's become clear in the 3 years of the commission that our primary responsibility, and perhaps the most important work that we do that is public facing, is the inspections. And those inspections happen both formally and informally. They result in a very formal report that's submitted to the public and the board and the BSCC, as well as very often commissioners conducting ad hoc, unannounced or announced informal inspections. So the first thing I want to do is say thank you to the commissioners who, as many of you know, dedicate many hours to this work and often are showing up at the facilities to help with this inspections process, and also to the staff of the POC who have worked to formalize it and make it effective. We have already started the 2024, it works on a calendar year, the 2024 inspections, and completed the inspection at Dorothy Kirby Center. A number of the commissioners were in attendance. I think it's fair to say it was a very successful inspection on all accounts. There will be a written report that is submitted to it that brings information, but there were, in fact, some market improvements over some of the things that were noted last year, in particular around some of the construction, physical aspects of the site that had caused some issues for concern for commissioners last year that had all been resolved as of this year. So you'll see more about that. The next inspection coming up is Kilpatrick, which will be happening soon. We also are doing targeted inspections of the facilities led by Dr. Gongora that are focused on programs, and in particular programs that help youth address substance use disorder. You all may remember that when we had the conversation about overdoses in the facilities and the contraband coming into the facilities, the commissioners led by, I will never forget the comments made by Commissioner Canales in that meeting about addressing the root of the problem and looking at the programs and services that are offered to youth to help them address the reasons why they're using drugs in the first place. And so Sarah, as she reported at the last meeting, has been continuing to conduct those inspections and will be reporting both informally to the probation department, which she does regularly. In fact, generally after every inspection, she has a little debrief with the facility director, as well as more formally to you all on the board going forward. I also wanted to make a few comments about data and collaboration with the department. It's been an interesting kind of lots of positives and lots of negatives experience with this data collection process. And I think part of that is because the probation department, over the 25 years that I have been watching it from the outside, has a lot of challenges with data. That's not unique to probation. It's, I think, a problem that's typical of law enforcement and quasi-law enforcement agencies across the country. And I'm excited to be a part of helping push the department forward into using data to make informed decisions. That change, because we're working with a very large county agency, can be painful. And that is pain I am absolutely willing to endure to make sure that we get to a place where there is both transparency and outcomes-based decision-making. So the conversation that was had earlier about the CC09s, the Commissioner Mundo said it one way, I'll say it another way. I really don't care about information that's identifying youth. I don't want to know anything about youth or their cases. And I think I speak for my staff in saying that the interest is really in understanding the overall picture, the trends, the analysis of who youth are that are coming in, which law enforcement agencies are bringing them in, what are they being charged with, what are the courts ultimately deciding, and that the long-term impact of this is what is in fact the role of Oversight Commission, which is to ensure that the department is adhering to, I think, in my opinion, the board of supervisors, the law, including the Welfare and Institutions Code, which is very clear about the purpose of the juvenile justice system, and the principles of Youth Justice Reimagined and the other board-based initiatives. Fortunately, I think we are in a time period here where we have a leadership team at the probation department that is equally interested in adhering to those principles, the law and the board and the BSEC and all those factors. And that's our job, to make sure that that's continuing to go forward. So we will continue to do that, and I'm sure that will result in future successes and future challenges. That I think is sort of the nature of oversight. I finally would like to just say a couple things about experiences that I've had over the last week. I learned that this week is the National Crime Victims' Rights Week. That's the Department of Justice has named it such. And I think I did a couple of things this week that are particularly related to that. And I think, I'll just say the two things that I did. One is that on Friday, thanks to Commissioner Canales, had the opportunity to spend the entire day in Chowchilla at the women's prison, the state women's prison. And then earlier this week, I went to a play that was a collaboration between a couple of USC programs and Healing Dialogues in Action that was focused on restorative justice. Those programs are both focused on thinking about sentencing reform and thinking about the people who, if you look at the spectrum of the way people traditionally look at the justice system, are those who have been held responsible for the crimes. What I found interesting in both of those experiences was the stories that the people told who were involved as the people responsible for the crimes about their own experience as victims of crime. And it is pervasive and something that has to be discussed, that the issues that are happening that lead our young people to come into the facilities and the adults who are on probation to be on probation often result from long histories of themselves being victimized. And so this is it's something that I learned when I first started studying restorative justice over a decade ago, which is that labeling around offenders and victims is really not helpful for the entire system of healing. And so I want to just take a moment to say how much I've been thinking this week about the pain that is experienced by victims of crime, and also the pain that is experienced by the people and their families and their communities and the adjacent folks to everyone who's involved in this system. So I'm proud of the work that the Commission is doing, and so thankful to the commissioners and the members of the public and the agencies that we work with and the probation department for the opportunities to think deeply about these issues. And certainly the role of the Probation Oversight Commission staff will be to continue to uphold the values of the Welfare and Institutions Code, the board priorities, and the priorities of Youth Justice Reimagined. So thank you for indulging me for a moment. I will end by saying you have attached to the agenda, as usual, the OC deployment reports and the population statistics. You also have a document that's called the Probation Oversight Commission 90-Day Update, which was created by our Mastermind Communications Manager, Ismail Chinchilla. There are a lot of interesting things in there, but there's one data point I have to say, because it's mind-blowing, which is that at our March 15th, 14th, doesn't matter, March 14th commission meeting, we had 851 people viewing the meeting. That is an exceptional achievement, and I think it goes to state the power and position that you all have as commissioners. So thank you for all the effort that you've done in professionalizing this commission and making it something that actually has impact and that people want to listen to. And thank you to the members of the public who participate and make these meetings lively and who encourage the further participation of the people you know. and to the department and the many members of the department who were among that 851. I heard something about watch parties, actually. I think that this has become a place where we bring into the public light discussions that were formerly not had in public. So thank you very much to my staff for the work they've done in their outreach and engagement, and in particular the communications team and Ismail and Belinda about the outreach they've done to bring in more people. So that is the end of it.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you to your team. I like to consider it our team, so thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
I wanted to thank you for what you said about victims just now, Wendy. I've gone back and looked at several of our meetings, and I was struck how often people say that we don't consider victims' positions or feelings. So I'm glad you said that. In fact, I've been wanting to give a speech about this forever, but you said it beautifully, except I want to add one other thing, which is when people are victims of crime, there's a process they go through. And one of the early stages is anger and in some ways an unhealthy desire for revenge. It's totally normal. I've felt it when I've been the victim of a crime. And it's people who are going through that stage who are it's at that stage that people interact with law enforcement, right? The victims work with DAs, with officers, with probation, in that place where they're still angry. You go back to those same people 2 years later, 3 years later, 5 years later, and ask them how they feel about that crime and their victimization and what they want. And they will not say, I want longer sentences. They will say, I want to make sure that that never happens to somebody else. The way you prevent it from happening to somebody else is rehabilitation, not incarceration for anything less than 25 years, right? If we're talking about a 2-year sentence, a 5-year sentence, without rehabilitation, you have not prevented recidivism. And so whenever we talk about rehabilitation as opposed to punishment, that is actually us trying to execute the wills of victims. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comment, question? Hey, Wendy, do we have any written or live public comment for
Chair,
item
one
6?
more comment over here.
Sorry. Commissioner Canales.
Thank you so much. Yes, I just wanted to thank Director Wendy for uplifting the Chowchilla event, the event that Wendy and Commissioner Carrillo attended. All the women in there were under 18 at the time that they committed their offense, and as they stood in the room, they had already thousands of years of incarceration, you know, some serving double life sentences. And, you know, the thing that was impactful about this event, it was called the Juvenile Offenders Committee Circle of Healing. And they had district attorneys from all over attending this, and district attorneys, nonprofit groups, advocacy groups, and even some that had been victims of crimes. And I think it was just a very powerful day to get an inside look at, you know, what is going on, but yet how hard people inside have transformed their lives and how hard they're working to contribute to society. And I know ARC has been a part of this for quite a while too, and I just wanted to uplift that event. Thank you.
I must have missed my invitation in the mail, but next time. So written comment or public comment?
I don't think we had any written comment on this agenda item. Do we have anyone who wants to make public comment? I don't see anybody in the room. Anyone online with their hands raised? Okay.
Okay. Further comments, questions? If not, we will go on to item number 7. Is for matters not posted on the agenda to discuss or place a future meeting agenda for action. If you'd like to provide public comment on the next item for general public, please raise your hand, and when we move there, we will be ready for you. Commissioners? Commissioner Meredith?
Yeah, these will probably be submitted later by me for future agenda items, but one of them is we need to look at focusing on having written policy and procedures. not just word of mouth. That's not being effective at all. The second thing I wanted to point out is that on the 22nd, Deputy Samuel Dispuro from LA Sheriff's Department was shot. Fortunately, he survived. He was hit in the vest by an AB 109er who was under the department supervision. And as you know, in June of 22, 2 El Monte police officers were slain by somebody under our supervision. So I just like to make sure the department follows up that we did do everything appropriate in maintaining supervision of him. That's all.
Any other commissioners' comments? Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
Hi, so an earlier agenda item that had to do with the trainings, I think was a little bit more narrow focused than I think what we heard call in people and that I feel needs to be discussed, which is a more general look at the reassignment of staff, both from adult and field services into Los Padrinos, what effect that's had on things like AB 109 supervision. We also received a critical incident report several weeks ago about a young person who committed suicide. And I'm not sure whether or not that person was getting the services that they would have, or whether the services they were receiving were affected by reassignments. I mean, really what I'm trying to say is I think what our field service and what our adult service people do is important. And we've been taking them away from that work. And I don't know if taking them away from that work is sustainable. I don't know what the effects of that have been. I have only my suspicions, which is that this sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul thing we're doing with staffing is not doing anything but kicking problems down the road and ignoring the harm that's being done in the meantime. So I know that's going to be on the adult services is on the agenda, but I want to make sure that the agenda item is framed in such a way that we can talk about reassignments more generally. I also would really like to hear more from the Probation Officers Union on this item. So if we can find some way to give them more time than 60-second public comment. I think if you listen to the BSCC meeting, one of the most powerful moments for me was when Ms. Rochelle, who often calls into our meetings, played back a tape of Mr. Ford speaking where he referred to, it was the reassignments were a war on the field and things like that. And those were powerful words. And I would like to really make sure that staff's voices are heard more clearly on this issue. So it sounds like it's already on the agenda, but if we could make sure that it's broad enough that it covers all of those things, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Speaking of staff, just want to let folks know that we read emails that come in, and we know that the president of Local 685, Mr. Ford, had a health emergency. So I want to send him best wishes. Hope he's doing well, and that we're thinking about him.
Thank you, Commissioner Carrillo. I actually was going to say that, but thank you. And Commissioner Garcia-Leyes, any information or any data or anything that you would like discussed regarding adult and employment or any other thing, please write the leadership team so we can include it and provide probation with that information so they can tailor their presentation. Any other commissioners? Okay. That being said, we're now moving to our final agenda item. This item is an invitation for members of the public to address the commission on items not on the agenda. Wendy, please facilitate public comment for us.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you'd like to give public comment in the room, please come up to the podium. We have a couple of hands raised already online. If you want to make public comment, please dial *6. No, is that right? *3. Dial *3 on your phone, and that'll raise your hand. When we call on you, you dial *6 to unmute yourself. And use the raise your hand function at the bottom of the page on WebEx. We'll go ahead with 2 minutes for public comment. And Mr. Bell, you can begin.
Thank you. I don't know if it moved over my head, but I want to give thanks to the field officers who helped keep the halls open because of their hard work, their dedication, changing their lives and sacrifices that they made. We was able to pass and keep the halls open. I'm not sure if it was mentioned today. Also, as well as victims not wanting long sentences, I think Ms. Cookie is putting something together, and I hope you attend. You might hear something a little different coming from them. And also Mr. DYD Director that called in earlier. Not spreading rumors. I'm just saying what kids are telling me when they come from the halls to the camps. You know, I'm not making no accusations. That's not what I'm up here to do. I don't like drugs at all. I lost someone very close to me because of drugs, but I don't accept it. I don't care who they are, officer, teacher, parent, I don't care who they are. I don't accept it. So when you just mentioned that, I just want to make sure we cover everybody. I don't want it in the halls at all. I don't want the kids to have it at all. That's the only thing I'm getting at. Not making accusations. I don't want them to have it at all. I don't like drugs. That's my thoughts on it.
Tanya Ibanez from Hangout Do Good. I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Lay mentioned, and that we're all, I think, hopeful that when we're operating a system, the focus needs to be on rehabilitation. We don't want these kids getting out and then becoming adult criminals. We want them to get the educational opportunities so that they can come out and be meaningful, contributing adults in society, and so that they won't revert back to committing crime as an adult. One of the issues that was brought up during the meeting break is two individuals that were here mentioned to me that a lot of the packouts are the result of fighting between gang members. So I would hope, and they also mentioned that a lot of the correctional officers are actually very good in identifying the different gang members and trying to isolate them from each other. And I just hope that the department will consider providing a lot more training on de-escalation based on gang membership. And also, I'm hopeful that the Probation Oversight Committee will also look into what is the department doing to continue and further the educational opportunities for these kids and the counseling. These kids need one-on-one counseling. They need counseling on getting out of gang membership. So that's my hope, is that the focus isn't just on staff training, but also training these youth so that they can thrive and grow as humans and get full rehabilitation. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Go ahead, Ms. Lamel.
My name is Cookie Lamel. I'm with Local 685. And it's interesting to me what you were talking about concerning the victims. I've been working with the victims for a number of months since this has been going on. And I've even proposed having a town hall in partnership with you concerning the victims. And it's something that's very important to me because I seem to always be the person who is dealing with the victims, and therefore I hear a lot of stories. Sometimes you can't stop people when they start talking. They just go on and on and on, and you don't want to stop them talking because it's important that they say what they are thinking, and that's part of their healing. Even though I've been a victim of a crime myself, but it's been such a long time ago that if somebody mentions something and I don't feel comfortable with it, now I'm angry again because you have to just keep going through it. You have to keep going through it. Counseling is not necessarily like she was talking about a 1 or 2 time thing. It's ongoing for years. And when people suddenly feel like it's kind of being shoved to the side, that just gets you more upset. At least if it's acknowledgement is what I'm talking about. Acknowledgement is very important for crime victims and that sort of thing. So in a couple of months, we'll have our our event here with you. Thank you for.
Okay, we have a couple of people signed up online. I don't see anybody else in the room. I think sorry, I've got to get back to my list. We'll start with Adrena. Adrena, you can unmute yourself.
Hi. For future items, I would like to discuss the gladiator fight video on future agendas because I want to share some of my experiences with this as well. I also was able to speak with the family, and they advised me that because of this fight, probation did a false write up for this kid. He was supposed to be released a month ago, and according to them, they told me he was still in juvenile hall because of this, and I feel like that's something important that should be on the agenda. I also want to discuss the staffing issues regarding the field office being unable to service the community, and our communities now being in danger. I also want to discuss and compare Los Angeles County juvenile halls to their neighboring counties who don't share the same issues as them, like Orange County, for example. I walk through those doors and it has me at a complete disbelief. And I feel like I want to report that to you guys and the public as well, the differences between each of them. And that's pretty much it. I just hope to be able to discuss these matters in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrina. We'll go next to Lupe Ross.
Hello?
Oh, we can hear you, Lupe. You can begin.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me start off by saying this, please. I've been dying to say this. We all saw the video of the gladiator fights about 3 or 4 months before the director of probation claims he saw the video in the news. Why? 3 or 4 months? Why? It was on Instagram, Facebook, and even article was written on it. It seems impossible that the director did not know about it for months. The video clearly shows the beating this boy took was sanctioned by the staff. Someone at probation did start an investigation of what happened. Why wasn't the director notified and the staff in the video suspended immediately? Who made the decision not to notify the director? For the director to state in his press release that he just found out about it is disgraceful and really, to me, unbelievable. He should have suspended the staff in the video months ago. The person doing the investigation should have been suspended months ago also for not notifying the director. Where are these staff members at now? Are they still working in the same juvenile halls, or are they transferred to another juvenile hall, or just different buildings? They need to answer to the Probation Oversight Commission and us, the families. As taxpayers, now we have to pay for a lawsuit for the beating this boy was subjected to. How are we supposed to believe what probation says is what is happening to our youth? We can't even get policies on how the probation is supposed to adhere to. The plan seems to be like all the other investigations that have been going on. Wait till 18 months pass, and then everything goes away. This is how I truly feel about this whole incident. This is disgusting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker will be a call-in user number 23. Your number starts with 310. You'll have to dial *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. It looks like you're unmuted on our end. You need to mute me and see if that works. We can hear you. I think. Is there anybody else signed up, Jennifer? Okay, we'll go to call-in user number 26.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Hello? Okay. All right, thank you. This is Mel. I just had an inquiry as it relates to future agenda items. Is it possible that we can have, or we can at least be entertained, or at least consider, at least can you consider presenting some of the positive attributes to the probation department? I recognize that the Probation Oversight Commission, and I'm going to highlight the word oversight, should be a totality of what's happening here. And I ask because I know over the past couple of years, I have personally invited the entire commission to community resource fairs, community advisory committees, to also show you the positive things that's being done in the community. And to date, only 2 of the POC representatives have even attended or even responded. And I appreciate you too. I won't call out names, I'll leave that to you. But I appreciate you too. However, it takes more. And the reason why I ask is because another commissioner who hasn't been around, who hasn't attended at the BSCC meeting, last meeting, he or she made it very clear that the BSCC seems to be a one-sided body. However, when we come to these meetings, it appears the same way with the POC. And maybe, I don't know if it's intentional or if it's just negligence. However, I believe if you experience, or if you allow more exposure to the positive things that the probation department is doing in the community, that maybe you might be able to take, at least you might be able to take an overt act to appreciate and understand the totality of what we're doing. And it's not just all the tabloid and negative comments that we hear every day. So I invite you to join us, participate. I love hearing how you go to other, to CBO positive events, but I would invite you to attend ours, and it would be great to see that as a future agenda item. Thank you, and everyone have a blessed day.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. That's very fair. I will say, Commissioner Canales and I attended at the department's invitation the graduation from the academy a couple of weeks ago since our last meeting. It was a really lovely afternoon. Commissioner Canales, I don't want to speak for you, but mentioned how proud the families looked at the meeting. So that certainly was a day for celebration and an accomplishment with the recruitment team and the training team. So you're absolutely right that there are things to be highlighted, and thank you for the continued invitations. We'll go back to the other call-in user. Remind me of the number. Call-in user number 23. Can hear you. I think we can hear you. You may need to dial *6 to unmute yourself. Okay. All right. Sorry, that's not working. Please submit your comments in writing, info@poc.lacounty.gov if we weren't able to hear from you. Jennifer, do we have anyone else on the list? Okay, great. Sir, thanks for being back in our meeting. We'll unmute you and you can proceed.
Highlight everyone's participation to make a change. Changes are happening. At the last BSCC meeting, some movement happened, and I love the last comment. Let's all get out there to see what CBOs are doing, what probation is doing, and keep on imagining youth justice reimagined. Keep on imagining a new system that the public, that the people voted for with Measure J. I know this may not be specific to it, but how they all overlap is liberty, is community, is God, DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equity. And we're working towards it. We're doing well. Let's continue to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for allowing us to end on that uplifting comment, and I'll pass it over to Commissioner Mundo.
I think we have a record for the adjournment time, but Before we do that, Mr. Lewis, Commissioner Lewis, I'm sorry.
Share something. So I spent a year on the Criminal Counsel Justice Task Force. The co-chairs of this task force, of the National Task Force, were Trey Gowdy. If you know Trey, he's a super conservative Republican. I label him as a McCain Republican, or Mr. McCain. If you understand the discourse that's happening right now. But Trey Gowdy's also someone who I consider a friend. And Sally Yates, former U.S. Attorney General, if you know who she is, two entire different ends of the spectrum. For a year, these two co-chairs, you can Google this, go on the Criminal Justice Council, look up the Long Sentencing Task Force, and see the body of people that were put together to evaluate and look deeply into how long sentences affect our communities across the country. And then there was a recommendation that was put out. The entire spectrum was covered, from people, from survivors of crime, national organizations, people who had lived experience being inside, former prosecutors, judges, sheriffs. We had a little bit of everybody. And what we found, based on all of the research, is long sentences do not give us what we need. Meaning they do not create safety. And overall, you do have, in the survivors area, you have some survivors that want long sentences, period. But you also have quite a few that say, I just want to make sure that this doesn't happen and that rehabilitation is available and that people change and don't hurt others. Those are facts. You can have both can happen in that group of people. And I speak from a person who's been shot twice, stabbed once, my mother's house was shot up, but I never considered myself a victim until I went through therapy and understood, like, why did I do some of the things I did? So I say all that so if you take a moment and you read the report and you read about the people who were on this, Trey Gowdy's original position was no one should ever, who committed murder, be let out of prison. He now believes that everyone should have a second look. And if they can demonstrate that they've done the work, that they've rehabilitated themselves, and that they demonstrate remorse and that they've changed, they should be able to get a second look. Night and day. But it was because of sitting down with people that have different views. I don't want to share that. The request that I have, Mr. Bell, I would ask you, the gentleman who called in for the probation resource fair, how about we do it together? Let's get all the CBOs. We did one with Hilda Solis, a big resource fair. Probation Oversight Commission was there. Probation was there. Everybody was there. Community-based organization, all of the county departments. Let's do it together. Let's do it together, and as district by district, we do these big resource fairs to help everybody. Let's partner, because if we're talking about being stakeholders in these facilities, we're stakeholders in the community. So I extend this olive branch to you to be the lead on it. I'll be the co-lead on it. Let's work together. We can do this 5 districts in LA County. Let's do it before the end of the year over. We do 5 big resource fairs. Thank you.
Thank you. So item 9, adjournment of the regular meeting of April 25th, 2024. Thank you all for joining us and sharing your comments. As a quick reminder, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel at LA County POC. To receive reminders about our upcoming meetings, visit our website at poc.lacounty.gov to subscribe to our email list. Can I have a motion to adjourn today's meeting? Commissioner Meredith, a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lewis. Please unmute yourselves and vote with a voice vote. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.